And yourself, Joshua, with the advantage of 3 years outside the management of a county when it comes to legislative agenda, how are we?
Okay, thank you very much. I think I would want to pick from where she's mentioned that the country is in a reflective mood. Being in a reflective mood then means it places the country in a mixed zone, whereby we don't talk about the extreme pessimism that was the character of 2023-2024, yep. But at the same time, you don't get that optimism that maybe was in 2022. So we are in a mixed zone. and why I say so is because of more or less like reality checking in, whereby when you talk about governance, and you've asked very well, governance is a very dynamic space. Governance is a very fluid space that keeps moving. Mm-hmm. And you have so many moving parts. First thing first is that you have a political class that is struggling to catch up with the expectations and the demands of the people. This began in 2022, when the current regime was pitching for its election. Its pitching was pegged on issues and agenda. And the promise given at that time was vote for Kenya Kwanza on the basis that we will be an issue-based government, and more importantly, we seek to rewrite the wrongs. And the main wrong at that time was more or less like economic mismanagement. But there was a small, maybe I can put it like more or less like a fine print. Yep. Governance was also an issue. But economic problems and mismanagement topped the list, so that the current government came with a clear mind. We have to sort out the economy. And you've seen, and I think if you see how the government works very hard on statistics to show what is the difference. And rightfully so, they can be able to show you, for example, how they've been able to check inflation, how they've been able to handle macroeconomics, how they have been particularly been keen to stem the crisis that would have been in terms of debt default. The only difference, the reason why I say we are in a mixed zone, is that the same then needs to translate to actual feeling and impact the people. People need to touch, feel this economic change that the current government is riding on. So that if you look at the past 6 months, and that is now post-Gen Z, yeah. If you look at the past 6 months per se, the government has, on the economic front, been churning out really positive news in terms of how we are handling the debt, in terms of even, like, for example, last week, you could see how the Treasury was bullish in buying out the Eurobond that was due in 2028. And number two, the ratings getting better. However, the problem is one. Very rosy, very good when it comes to the statistics. But now when you just climb down a bit to the real person and the real people, they will see the statistics, they'll pause. I almost kind of equate it with the time of 2022. There was a time when, I think when we were voting in 2022, and there was a voter asked in the queue, how are you seeing this particular exercise? Are the polling agents organized? What do you think? And the only thing he said, it's in amount. He had no opinion. So the same thing applies now. That's why we are in a mixed zone. So the government then, you see a pivot towards trying to do something that can reinvigorate the people. When you talk about, for example, the Nyota program, it's a way now to try to lay it over, away from the statistics, to a real thing that people can touch. That's why, for example, programs that you could feel and touch, like Hustler Fund, is not per se on the talking point. Now, Nyota program, I feel, will now take over the space that Hustler program was supposed to do and it has not achieved. Importantly, you find the twin projects, for example, the health, universal health coverage, yep. becomes the single most important program that will dictate how much impact on policy it would be. Quickly then, on issue of devolution, as you mentioned, the missing link, I think, in all this story has been the story of devolution post-2022. If you look at it, because this is now the third phase of devolution. Yeah. For me, I feel this is the period where devolution has lost it. The national government has been so much on the face and so much powerful that the devolved system has lost it.